Ladies, thank you so much for being a part of OB Boss Babes podcast yet again. And of course, our 4th annual Women's Collective.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah. I've had all 3 of these ladies on our podcast before, and so it's so exciting to be welcoming all 3 of you back again. And Morgan, I did tell you, I said I was going to find a way, I said, to incorporate you into an event at some point, so I'm glad that we're doing this. All right, so you ladies got to hear a little bit about what Women's Day means to me, but now I want to open up to all of you. What does Women's Day mean to you?
Who wants to go? I'll start. Can everybody hear me if I talk like this? Yeah. Okay. So I got to thinking about this on the drive here, actually, about what International Women's Day means to me. And I thought I had an answer, but then realized that answer would be wholly inadequate last year and the year before. And so to me, I think that International Women's Day marks a point where we're at. Every International Women's Day, we get a chance to look back on our past and to see how far we've come, and actually to recognize all of the gender disparities that have happened before, all of the tragedies that have happened, and to learn from them. But we also have our present, where we can look around and see, yes, we can be very proud of how far we've come, but we can also recognize the ongoing problems within our society, whether it be a politician telling us to get back into the kitchen, whether it be hate crimes perpetuated on our friends and neighbors right here in Renfrew County. It also has an element of hope, where we can think, where next year at this event are we going to be? What am I specifically going to do to help us bring there? And what can we hope our peers can come together and do? So for me, International Women's Day evolves every year and changes in that way.
Kristin, what about you?
Yeah, so a lot of the things Jodie mentioned was also similar to my response. I feel like International Women's Day means it's a time to reflect upon what your reactions are throughout the year, and compared to last year, what you've done in order to vocalize some things that are troubling you, but also recognize things that are happening internationally with, human rights, legal issues, and supporting other women who have a larger voice or opinion maybe than you do on certain aspects that are hot topics. For example, my hairdresser right now is very, very vocal on social media and using her platform to bring and shed the light to femicide right now in Palestine. And she's getting a lot of heat from it. She made a post yesterday about the hate messages she's getting. And I think we have to recognize as women that, a couple things that went through my mind is if she were a man on that platform, would she be getting the same amount of hate? And I honestly think no. And I think that we're so quick to judge women and their right for free speech based on so many different levels. And I think as women, even if we disagree or if we don't think, whatever, we have our duty to acknowledge the fact that this is someone going out on a limb for what they feel is important to them. And it can go from, any topic at all. So, so just reflecting on what we do to support other women, and also acknowledging where we have to go and our wins as well, where we have made a difference and changed just by using your own voice or just by supporting.
Yeah. Morgan, what about you?
I'd like to just say ditto. That was awesome. I think for me, it's also just about celebrating the achievements that we have and owning them and owning our talents and owning our skills and knowing that, you belong and you belong and you are entitled to occupy any space that you're in. And I think that we need to be empowered. We need to empower each other to know that we are worthy of a seat at the table. And while we're at that table, we need to grab all the other women and get them to the damn table as well, and just really take the opportunity to uplift each other.
I love that. It's funny because that's actually leading into my next question is looking around the table and seeing who's missing. looking for that representation to ensure that others are going to be there to fight the fight with you. Now, obviously, I think that feminism is more about empowering women. And like I said, it is about looking around the table to see who needs to be there. So, ladies, how are you redefining the word feminism?
I think for me in our workplace, the way that we sort of work to redefine feminism is really all about encouragement and empowerment of our fellow colleagues and the women in our practice, and making sure that they feel heard, that they feel they have a voice, that they feel that they're worthy of leadership roles in our particular practice, and also making sure that they know that, you know, we as leadership owners of the clinic value and respect work-life balance, and we make accommodations for, you know, work schedules and child care and, you know, all of the things that come with, you know, being a woman and being a mom and being an entrepreneur. So for me, it really comes down to the empowerment, encouraging, and mentoring people so that we have more representation in those leadership roles.
So how I'm bringing feminism into my business, my workplace, and my everyday. Practicing not to assume right off the bat the motivations of other women. In my industry, I'm in the beauty industry, and I've often had to vocalize the fact that women more often than not, like 99.9% of the time, women are coming and choosing to do X, Y, and Z for their own selves. It's something that is often assumed, you know, women behave or react or do a certain way because that's what's expected of them. And I really want to advocate that we have to support each other to understand that women choose, and they're trying to choose things not because of a bias. So whether their choice of religion or their choice of habits, choice of lifestyle, their model at home, whatever model their family looks like, that we have to support and assume the best of other women, and that was their choice for whatever reason. So I think that, you know, every day in the beauty industry, that's something that I like to remind our clients and the public as well, just not to take your first knee-jerk reaction into why and what motivates other women to do other things, and just to support.
Jodie, you opened a feminist law firm in Deep River a couple years ago, and so what was that like for you, stating publicly that you were opening a feminist firm, and how did you explain that to the community as well as your staff as to what that would look like?
So when I decided to open a feminist law firm in Renfrew County, it was it was something that I had planned for years, or hoped to do for years, which is to open a feminist firm. But it was also something that came very organically, because I realized in Deep River, and believe it or not, I'm the first female practicing lawyer. Like in the 2020, one of the well, we can clap, but we can also say what in the world? And so when I had this conversation about opening a firm, I realized that I might get a lot of pushback and a lot of difficulties with clients just for being a woman. And so I spoke with my business coach at the time about what I should do. You know, should I have a brand that says we can do everything men can, or just as good? And then I thought, you know what? I'm racing their race. Instead, I'm going to say, we bring something new to the table. We bring something exciting and different and capable. And so you'll notice in Primeau law, there's a woman symbol right in the middle. And I like to say we put our lady parts right in the middle of our firm. And so opening that, of course, caused conversation. What is a feminist firm? What does that mean? And I think it was a good conversation to have. And so to me, going back to what feminism means, I think it's not only asking the hard questions, but it's also seeing opportunities to answer the hard questions and to change the conversation. So at our feminist firm, we do things differently. A lot of what Morgan was actually just saying, we really incorporate work-life balance, but we also don't shy away from when someone calls and says, why do you hate men? we all work to answer that with, we don't hate men, but please don't hate feminists either, because what we're trying to do here is make an equal and a safe space for everyone.
Now, ladies, next I want to touch on the importance of knowing your value and your worth and charging exactly what you think that you should be charging for. What are some things that you think that women who value their self-worth do differently than others?
That was something that I sort of had to unpack when I first started in the optometry business after graduating. Because for me, even after all of my degrees and my accolades and my achievements, I was sitting there and I felt like I wasn't worthy of being there. I had a little bit of imposter syndrome, if any of you have heard about that. 80% of women, which is a crazy number, have experienced imposter syndrome. And over 75% of women in leadership feel like they're not enough to fill that role, which is just crazy. And so I had to unpack that and figure out why, with all of these achievements, do I feel unworthy? And so I learned through diving into that a little bit that self-worth is a little bit different than what we would consider self-confidence. And I always thought those things were the same. But they're a little bit different because self-worth is not dependent on external factors. So it doesn't matter about your achievements, your successes, your failures, other people's opinions of you. It is your innate knowing that you are enough just as you are, period. You belong because you are you and you're living and breathing. And self-confidence, on the other hand, is based on, your comparison to everybody else. And so when you really, truly dig into that and work on your self-worth, then you can view your business practices in a different way and come from a place where you're being more true and authentic to yourself. And you're making decisions about your business that are in line with what you value instead of making fear-based decisions, because you start to look at rejection and failure as, instead of taking it personally and affecting your self-worth, because it can't. Your self-worth is what it is. And so you start to reframe the rejection as, you know what, maybe there's a better opportunity out there that's better suited for me. Maybe I'm being guided in this direction and I can learn from this. So for me, if you can really work, and for me, I had to work on my self-worth and find out how to do that, it can really allow you to make decisions from a completely different standpoint. And just as a side note, if you haven't read the book Worthy by Jamie Kern-Lima, it is fantastic. And it's all about building your self-worth. So I would highly recommend that one.
That was a tough question. I'm not going to lie. I've spent thousands of dollars in therapy to unpack that same question. Still working on it. I don't know if I'm the best role model for that particular question, but I suppose knowing your limits on where you stand, where you value your own self, and when you need to reach out to ask for help to expand on seeing yourself as worthy in the playing field with family, friends, business, life. I think as women, especially, in my age group, the 40-plus age group, in the 80s and 90s, our cards were stacked against us, right? And what we were expected to achieve. And I don't know whose card that is on the table that says 30 over 30, but you better believe I'm going to go and Google it, because that whole narrative of 40 under 40 for women always hurt me to my soul, because 40 came and went for me and I never was on a 40 under 40 list. What is 40? What happens after 40? Do we go to pasture as women? Like, are we now not on the playing field? So I think that's a great thing, the 30 over 30, because we still have value no matter what age we are as women and no matter what we achieved by a certain age. Right. So that's a hard question to just unravel in one answer. But starting to learn that you have value no matter where you are, what you're doing, and what other people think at all times.
I love that answer. I love that so much. Yes. And Stephanie Montagny, where are you? That's Stephanie right there.
Yeah, Stephanie. Woo!
About that later.
And to Stephanie, 30 over 30. Love it.
Steph. Jodie, what about you?
Actually, I just kind of want to jump off what my two panelists were talking about, and that's worth, and about women struggling with worth and with imposter syndrome. And one thing I really want to bring to the forefront is that sometimes we can be gaslit into thinking that the reason why we struggle with self-worth is because women are innately not confident or innately don't feel worthy. And that's total bullshit. Like, we are regularly, every day we wake up, we are pushing against the system that is telling us we're not enough, or a system that's rigged so that female qualities come under the bar. And so we have to recognize that not only are we enough, but we don't need to be enough for a system that disadvantages us. We can make our own system. We can be enough for us, we can be enough for each other, and we can create our own system where we come out on top. So I think a big part of recognizing your worth is not playing in a system that wasn't designed for us, but making a new system. And I want to share one anecdote that I had heard from an associate in a big law firm. She was a senior associate, and she went on vacation, and her superior, her manager, was answering her emails. Now, I'm not going to say why he was being lazy, but he was being lazy and continued to use her signature in responding. She came back from vacation, and he was blown away. He sat down with her and said, "I can't believe this. I've been writing to your clients with the same advice that I would write to my clients with," and he's a more experienced lawyer. And he said, "Every time I wrote to one of your clients, I had to write 3 times as many emails, 3 times as much explanations, because they questioned me on things they would never question you on." That's what we deal with. That's why we don't have time. And so, again, when we're talking about how we practice law, how we practice medicine, how we practice being an entrepreneur, we have to recognize that those feelings of self-doubt and self-worth or lack of self-worth come from the society that downplays our value. And so I think it's really important that we find and invent new ways where our qualities are emphasized and are valued.
I want to build on this question a little further, because the other day I was on the Carlton Place mom group, and oh goodness, the rabbit hole you can go down on those mom groups. But one in particular is that somebody brought forward the question about, and this is actually relation to your field, Jodie, was somebody questioning a female lawyer who was charging for time on an email. And it was, the case had been closed, or at least they thought it was closed, and then they were reopening it, and then they got a bill in the mail, and how dare they? And then there was this thread. And then suddenly a female lawyer jumped in to justify and explain why there was a charge. And so I think that just this kind of opens up the conversation a little bit further in terms of all 3 of your industries, which are and have been primarily male dominated for so long. And I saw that and I thought to myself, I don't think somebody would go to a male optometrist and say, why am I getting a bill for this amount? Somebody in medical aesthetics, why did this Botox cost me X amount of money? Well, the prices are there. Like, you shouldn't have to justify that. Same with a lawyer fee. And I just thought to myself, like, why are these conversations still happening? Because if this was a male practitioner, I don't think that they would be getting pushback. And I'm sure that you guys get calls and emails like this all the time asking, why is this bill so much? Or trying to justify or maybe even negotiate costs. And yes, you ladies are nodding. And I have a lot of smaller, and you guys know I hate using the word small, but I have a lot of smaller business owners who are building their business and learning the ropes in their industry, who are trying to learn how to say no and set those boundaries for themselves and say, these are the costs that I've set. These are the standards. And if you don't like it, then you can find yourself somebody else to work with. So how have you navigated those conversations in your specific industries without really having to feel like you have to justify as to why you have set your price points?
I'll be really quick on it, because this is a quick trick that I picked up along the way. And I think it is about reframing the conversation. And so when a client comes to me, I quote them how much it's going to be for a trial. And they say, like, oh, that's a lot. I don't know if it, I don't know if I really have that much or if this is what I want. That seems a little pricey. I regularly will tell them, I'm going to give you a list of 3 to 5 lawyers, all of whom charge less than I do. And you might be happier with that. For my service, this is what it's worth and this is what it costs. And I'll give them the 3 names, hang up the phone. I'd say 7 out of 10 times they call back because they say, no, I want the service that's worth this much. And so I think knowing your worth and just standing behind it without compromise, without explanation, is the way to set the course on emphasizing and delineating your value.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Jodie. Coming up with a script is a really good way to start. Some women have a really good idea and sense of what their boundaries are, and they're unapologetic. And I've always admired those types of women. Myself, I've always, I don't like to be put on the spot, and sometimes I get a little flustered. And then it feels like once I open that little crack of wiggle room, someone really, it's like a little, I don't know, they're attracted to it. They know how to get in there. And then the conversation's going in a way that I can't control. So it's the same with our staff. Sometimes we get a phone call and it could be a hard conversation. So we've put in place scripts, right? Come up with a script. Don't overtalk. What's the word? Overspeak or over-explain. That's what I was looking for. Don't over-explain. Just stick with the script. And then it's neat. Once you stick with the script and you control your own narrative, which was yours to begin with, it empowers you just to do it on your own. And you can start to say the things you really want to say and get off script. But it's a really good, easy place to start. And don't beat yourself up for, if you did get a little taken advantage of, you did get pushed over. Just say, okay, I don't want that to happen again. It feels crappy. It really takes a toll on my value and self-worth. It hurts my business. It hurts my employees. So I'm gonna make a script, and it's going to be just very straightforward.
I think those are both excellent answers. And I think just to go a step further, I think in order for you to create value to your patients or to your clients, you have to understand the true value of what you're creating and what you're offering, the product or service. And so you have to clearly identify what it is you're offering and how you value that yourself. So for example, what is your area of innovation? Are you focusing on price? Do you want to offer the lowest price? Are you focusing on convenience? Offering the quickest way to get something, the easiest way to get something? Or is your focus quality? Are you wanting to offer a service or product that someone can't get somewhere else? And so for me in optometry and eye care services, quality is what we focus on. And so if quality is what you focus on, then you don't want to compare to other prices in the industry in a race to the bottom, because that's not where your focus is. So then when you're looking at what is the value of my offering, once you identify what that is, then you want to look at what is your strength that you bring to that offering, and what are your unique talents and abilities and life experiences that make that offering so unique, because there's only one you. You're a limited edition. You're one of one. And only you can offer a certain product or service in that way. And even though there might be a lot of successful people already in that industry, the product that you have to offer doesn't exist yet because it's not offered by you. And so if you believe in that and you believe in the value, like Jodie was saying, that you have to offer, then your clients or your patients will believe in that too.
Bringing it back to Cassie again, talking about financial empowerment, I want to break the bias on women in investing, focusing on equal financial opportunities. What was your investment strategy for each of your businesses, and how did you secure funds to build your business? Because I think that, the equity aspect of it, not everyone has $100K in their bank accounts. Not everybody knows the different business resources and organizations that are available. And I think that people also undermine women because you go to the bank and you ask for a loan and they're asking you to have a co-signer or your spouse, or you just get turned down altogether because of your credit score or that you haven't been in business for more than 2 years. this is a conversation we're still that we're still having. So what did your business strategy financially look like?
Hope and a prayer. Oh, yeah. So in terms of finances for my business, again, I'm probably not the best leader in this, but it was just a lot of hard work. Every dollar that I made went directly back into my business. I didn't have a savings or a plan really, but just to give it all I had and go for it, and to accept the fact that I might not financially benefit in the near future from it. And it's funny, when Holly first asked me to do this, I wasn't sure what her model was. And I said, I want to talk about behavioral investing. She never got back to me because she probably thought I was mad. But I think what the term behavioral investing means is, especially as a woman in business, weighing your risks to the benefit. So when you're deciding to go into business, no longer are you an injector or in law or in medicine. You are now an investor, and you're investing in yourself, and you're investing in your skill. And when you're making the decision whether to work for someone else or work for yourself, you're weighing the risk of letting go of a pension. You're weighing the risk of parental leave. You're weighing the risk of sick leave. These are all the things that you have to weigh when you're deciding whether or not to throw caution to the wind and work for yourself as an entrepreneur. And if that risk outweighs your overall happiness. So say if you decide, I am going to risk all those things, but I'm going to succeed. But what if you don't? Will that make you so unhappy, regretful? Will it ruin your whole, your life savings? You have to decide if that risk is okay for you to take on. So that's kind of my answer for getting started, finances, how you get the money. If you don't have the money, is it worth it to you? Is that risk worth it?
I can talk a little bit about opening a law firm. So when I was in Kingston, I was working for Queen's Legal Aid, and there was a young lawyer, a new lawyer, I shouldn't say young. He was the same age as me, went to law school later. And he had just opened up his own firm or his own office. And I asked him, where did you find the money for that? Like, how is it that you were able to finance this, particularly as a law student coming out of law school? You have negative money, not zero money, negative money. And I said, how did you do that? He said, oh, it's so easy. You go to the bank, you basically show them your law degree, and they gave me $100,000. I was like, that sounds wonderful. Great. Okay, I'll do that. So I went to the bank, and in addition, I had like a full business plan that I'd really considered. I had at the time 8 years of a very successful practice, proven results, proven billings. And I went to of the major banks, 3 of them, all of whom said absolutely not. Like, I'm sorry, you haven't shown that you can have a business successfully for 2 years, so you can't have a loan, which seems like a real problem, right? You can't get a loan to get a business, but you can't get a business without a loan. And so I was really frustrated, but there was, and I'm going to shout out her name. Her name was Nicole Popke out of BMO. And she came to me and she said, I know what you're doing. I like what you're doing, and I'm going to support it. And so what she did was she went to the underwriters. She did everything she could to get me this loan. And she said, I know you're going to be successful. You just need somebody to give you a hand. And sure enough, she got me the loan. I paid it off probably in a year and a half. And things were going great. Now, the pandemic is a completely different story, but things were going great. And then I had one of those banks come back to me and say, we have a women in business program. Would you like to be part of it? And I wrote them a 3-paragraph email saying, it was kind of like the Pretty Woman, like, how do you like me now? And I said, you should talk to Nicole Popke because she knows how to spot talent without a gender lens. And so I wanted, that always stuck with me, that she took a chance on me as a fellow woman. She was the one who grabbed me, brought me to the table. And I never forgot her for it. And let's remember, in 1964, we couldn't open a bank account without a signature.
It's not that long ago.
Without our husband's permission. And now the fact that we still need a cosigner, and who do they want to cosign? Your dad or your husband? We're not that far away from 1964. So we still need to work hard, to push hard, and we are still up against unfair and unequal barriers.
Thank you for touching on that, Jodie. I think that's so important to highlight and just bring awareness to it because, again, I wasn't aware of these financial struggles. And when I had Donna Sal from Physio in the Valley, and she had said the same thing, that she had went to multiple banks and got turned down again and again. And she had brought her portfolio and all the books in, and she fought so hard. And it wasn't until, again, another woman said, I've got you. Mm-hmm. And it's just, that's so difficult. That's so challenging. Morgan, do you think that we're still facing financial struggles in 2024? Do you think we've made much progress?
I think, like Jodie mentioned, with not being able to open bank accounts in the 60s, I think we have come a long way, but I certainly think there's room to grow. I know for myself in optometry, graduating with a lot of student loans, when I decided to buy into the practice, I also had to seek investment opportunities and financial opportunities. And my colleague and partner, Alex, bought into the practice about 5 years prior to me. And when she went to get her, I hope she's okay with me sharing this. I think she would be. When she went to apply for her loan at a financial institution, they would actually only give her the money if one of the existing partners who were male co-signed on the loan, which is like a conflict of interest, first of all, and just completely inappropriate. And thankfully, I didn't have that experience because she was able to move from bank to bank and find someone who would support her. And then she gave me that information. So that's where I started. But I would say that if you're working with someone who doesn't value you and see your potential, move on. You have the permission to find someone that can work with you. We had an awesome introductory speech by the cooperators today. There's somebody who is in your corner, ready to work for you, ready to work with you, knows your value. Find people like that because you don't have to settle. And that's something that took, time for me to learn. And I'm sure my panelists as well, that you don't have to settle. So don't.
Yeah. I think hiring, I purposely and intentionally hire other women to help me in my business. So my accountants, like Cassia mentioned, there's a lot of advice you could get in the financial industry, but I have had more success and more support and more empathy from the female professionals in that field in terms of understanding what the struggles are within the business and finances as being a female entrepreneur. I've had, when I first went to business, I had, I wasn't gender biased, but I just found myself going towards more the female financial advisors and accountants because they just seem to understand it a little bit more.
Actually, I just fired my IT group because, and it like, there were a number of things. It wasn't just this one time, but I was telling them, I'm like, my internet's not working in this one room. We have a weird building. It's not working in this one room. And I had the guy at the end of all of these struggles say like, yes, it is. And I was like, no, I'm looking at my screen. It says no internet. He's like, you have internet on your computer. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, am I being gaslit by my own? So I told them like, that's it. I've had enough. I'm leaving. And then I searched for an IT company that was female owned. And that was the only one I would do because I thought I've done enough of this in my dating life. Like I'm not doing this in my own firm. Like F you. And it was wonderful. I told her what happened. She was like, I can't believe that. And it's been a harmonious relationship since.
I just have to pause just to say, like, I just love these real and raw conversations because, and this is like what I'm saying about what Women's Day is all about. Like, let's really just talk about the real stuff that's going on behind the scenes and the stuff that women actually want to hear. Another area I want to focus on is setting personal boundaries. And I'm constantly having this conversation with entrepreneurs in business. I have to even tell this to my therapist, who you think would be, pretty good about setting personal boundaries. And she has told me multiple times, Holly, you can call me on the weekend and the evening. If you need me, I'm there. And I'm like, Lindsay, boundaries. I said, I have to recognize those and you have to set those for yourself. But how have you ladies set boundaries for yourselves in business?
So I actually went to a wellness retreat and we were talking about boundaries, and I realized that I'm very, very rigid with boundaries. As a criminal defense lawyer, it's super important to begin with. And she said, "Well, you've got excellent boundaries. They're a little bit scary, but it's fine." And so what I always do is I recognize at the center of myself what I'm there to do and what I'm not there to do. And the reason why that's so important is women in society are expected to be everything to everyone. As soon as we enter a work field, we are expected to be their mother, their wife, their girlfriend, whatever. And I just completely reject that. Like, I've got my own relationships. And so whenever I am with a client, I ask myself, is this what I'm retained to do? And if the answer is no, I tell them, like, this is not where we're going. We're going to do this. So that's number one. Number two is I recognize my work hours as the ones that I made, because as women in business, we get to do that. So that's like the best part. So why would we take that away? And then finally, when it comes to what work I take on, what work I give discounts for, or what work I do pro bono, I ask myself, and I should say I'm a single mother of a 3-year-old, and I think, this time that I'm going to be spending working for this person, am I happy with what I'm charging, with what I'm doing, and with like what's going to come out of it, enough that it's worth that amount of time away from my kid? And I price accordingly. And so if I'm thinking about an hour helping some like terrible person, it's going to be very expensive. If I'm helping a woman trying to get out of an abusive relationship, I'll do that pro bono. So it really depends. And I think that's how I set my boundaries, is I think about what I value, what I want to do, and anything that exceeds what I value or what I want to do, I just pass on to somebody else who values it more.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate, though. When you're starting a business, we're pretty much told and schooled you have to give up all your boundaries to make it successful, especially in our current economy. In this day and age, it is hard to become a top-tier person in your field. And I know I saw Jodie and I go way back, and I remember her graduating law school, and I think she slept 2 hours a night. And that was expected. And then all of a sudden you hit this certain part of your career after you've gotten in the habit of being a complete workaholic, having zero boundaries in order to be successful. And now suddenly you're told, you have to have boundaries. Where are your boundaries? You have to say no. But I haven't said no in X amount of years. Like, I remember starting my business, I've made myself physically and mentally ill in order to get past it. Had to, deep dive into my habits and really unpack a lot of things. So how do we establish boundaries after we've been told you have to give them up in order to be successful? So how do we do that? I think it goes back to understanding and not judging other women when they do establish boundaries. So I've had to catch myself and say, don't judge her. She's in year 1 and she's taking a weekend off, because that's what I did. That's what I chose. That's what I was led to believe. That's what, I did. So when other people aren't doing it, we can't judge them. They're choosing their mental and physical well-being over their status in their profession. And instead of judging it, we should support them and applaud them for having those boundaries. So I think that's something that we should do more as women, because we understand more often than not what we do feel like we have to give up. So,
Morgan, for you, I want to kind of turn the question a little bit and ask, how confident are you in saying no to things that don't align with your values or your brand's vision, or that you don't want to do or simply won't put up with?
So I think that just to build off of what Kristin said, that I think you do have to constantly reevaluate where you're at, because when I first started, I was new. I wanted to build my patient base. I wanted to take on whomever would have me. And I sometimes put up with some really rude people. And, I felt that I had to do that in order to build my patient base. And now I'm at a point where patients are waiting 8 months to get in to see me. And so I've gotten to a point where, because I've built that success, that I'm able to say, you know what, there is a level that I am willing to receive from patients, that I'm willing to accept in terms of behavior in a relationship. There's a level of respect there that I now demand. And if you don't meet that level of respect, here's your patient file and here's a list of other places that you're more than welcome to go to. So I think it really depends on what state you're at, what level in your career you're at, but you do eventually get to a point where, again, it's that feeling of worthiness, that feeling of enough, no matter where you're at in your career, to say, hey, I'm worth more than this, and I'm not willing to accept that. So being able to pick and choose your client base, pick and choose your working hours. And if you're having a hard time identifying, how to say no or where to set your boundaries, ask for help. I go to therapy. I go to therapy regularly. I need it. I suffered from massive burnout when I first started out as an associate. And therapists can help you set boundaries. There are so many other women in business who have been there, who have suffered, their mental health has suffered from burnout, and they'll help you. They'll give you ideas of how they went about, setting one boundary at a time. So ask for help and always reevaluate, because like was mentioned, things are fluid. They change.
Can we just talk about normalizing therapy?
Oh, I love therapy.
I love therapy so much. Yes, therapy. Our therapists are like prime. Like, we definitely need them in our lives. I remember actually watching a Sex and the City episode where I think Miranda had said, "Oh, I'm going to therapy, the Looney Tunes," And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, have we ever come so far? Our therapists are definitely crucial. Now let's address some of the deeper and complex challenges you ladies have faced over the years of breaking into your specific industries, especially because medical, cosmetics, law, and optometry have been typically gender stereotypical industries. How have you addressed and challenged gender stigmas to ensure that you had a seat at the table and were taken, in fact, seriously?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So in my industry, I'm in a female-dominated industry, and most of my clients, I'd say 80% are female. We're really happy to say that we do actually have more male clients in the Ottawa Valley than I thought, but that's a whole nother topic. Nursing tends to be a very female-dominated field, but it's a fact that as physicians are still a very highly male-dominated field. And my staff and I went to a conference in Nashville last year, and I couldn't help but observe that 90 to 95% of the attendees were female, and 90 to 95% of the presenters were male. And I was very disappointed. Very few females had the floor on the panel for discussion. There was a few, but not nearly as many. And you would think and assume that in a field that is so dominated by women, that at least we would be in charge of the whole thing, right? So what did I do? You know what? I'm shameful to say I did nothing. I should have emailed it. I spoke about it with my coworkers and the team and my level of disappointment in that. But it's still there. So I really sympathize and empathize with other females in other professions that are continually fighting for their right for an even playing field. And I know Anne-Marie McDonald from CBC did a huge documentary called The Mother Lode about 15 years ago, and she came up with statistics, numbers, and she stated that, and I think Jodie and I talked about it at the time because I wanted her opinion, but she had interviewed a few lawyers, a few physicians, and compared them and asked them when they graduated with their graduating group, where are the women and where were the men? And the men had all made partner. They had all been chief of staff. And the female of the same graduating class and the same amount of hours put in the work were still at entry-level positions. And I think that we need to discuss that more and try to break down those barriers as to why that happens, because it still happens to this day.
I think that's also the case in optometry. Now, in comparison to years before, there's a lot more representation of females in optometry. I think 60% of optometrists in North America are now female, but 80% of the clinic owners and leaders in the field are still men. And I think in terms of why does that happen, I think there's two things at play. I think number one, men are usually evaluated based on their future potential that they may be able to bring to the table eventually, whereas women are more evaluated based on the work that they have done. So we need to prove ourselves 100% before we are eligible for a promotion. So I think that plays a huge part in it. And I think the other thing is, I read something recently that said that research shows that in society, we look at successful women. And successful women are actually more unlikable. Unlikable, the more successful you are. Whereas on the opposite side, the more successful a man is, the more liked he is. And so because of that, we grow up as little girls with these societal norms where we are taught to be or encouraged to be modest, to downplay our achievements, to keep our opinions to ourselves, put the needs of others before the needs of our own. Mm-hmm. And so we all want to be liked. We all want to be loved. And so we end up dimming our light to fit in. We hold our opinions to ourselves. We don't raise our hand in class, even though we know the answer. And so I think it's just shifting out of that and empowering ourselves to own our damn talents and own our strengths and realize where we've come from and share that and encourage other people to do the same, and, you know, not to be ashamed of those achievements, not to be ashamed to stand out, and really harness that in your business practices and moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Kevin. In my field, and I'm going to give a small trigger warning because I'll be talking a bit about sexual assault, but in my field in criminal defense, it's very largely male-dominated. And there's also a roughness to it, right? We deal with difficult things, controversial things, tough people, tough judges. And so I find that as women, or at least I can't say as women, I'll say as a woman coming into it, I felt like I had to jump into that role as well, which meant turning the other cheek when someone said something terrible to me, or just kind of pushing things to the side. So, and that started to change as I got my bearings and as I started being more confident, but also as I just got tired of it. When I was a young lawyer and I was at a work function, I had a very senior member of the bar come into a bathroom where I was and close the door and he tried to sexually assault me. I was able to stop it. But then I heard knocking on the door from our other colleagues. And he said, well, I guess we have to face the music, which there's no music to face. Like, he should have been the only one to face the music in that situation. But I recognized right then, when we walk out, he is going to elevate in his social stature. I am never going to be able to work at another firm. So I jumped out the second story window into the snow and walked back around into the workplace. I've never heard a story like that from a man, but my colleagues will tell you similar ones. And so we face that type of barriers, of obstacles that men don't face in our profession, and that's not okay. When I came into Renfrew County, I had a colleague who actively bullied me every day and worked and used his privilege and his power against me. And I used to, every day, I would listen to Titanium by Sia and imagine all these things passing by me as I drove into Pembroke. Again, something that was very gender targeted and gender based on my age and my gender. And then the third thing is that when clients speak with me, and sometimes other lawyers, they think it's okay to make remarks about my sexuality, my gender, what I'm wearing, what I look like, things they might want to do or say to me. And in one scenario, I was sitting in the solicitor's lounge where lawyers talk openly about cases, etc. And one of them asked when my porn site was going to be coming up. And so I was in the room. There was, I think, 6 other male lawyers with me. And I just put down my book and said, do you want to know why women aren't in criminal law? This is why. And none of you have stood up for me. This is not okay. Don't say that again. And he didn't. He was very scared after that. But that should have never happened. I should have never had to do that. And so when we talk about overcoming challenges, we have to recognize that we are playing a very different game. We have fewer weapons and we have more aggressors, and we can take strength from that. But we also have to recognize that our ability to push back against that comes from privilege as well.
I think, too, on International Women's Day, we have to recognize the fact that sometimes amongst women, we perpetuate that our own selves, right? Because it is a narrative that we were born to believe. And like Holly was saying, at her opening speech, help a sister out, like maybe it sounds like there wasn't a single female around for Jodie, but if there was, what's stopping her from saying, excuse me, what did you just say? A little louder in the back, please, because I don't think everyone heard you. Then you flip it and they're embarrassed and they shut their mouth. So I think that we really, really have a far way to go as women and how we treat and help out other women. I think that we can all do better because as a group, as a group of women, we can be unstoppable, but we have to learn how to trust each other. So if I stop on Monday putting smiley face emojis on all of my emails, because I have to do it, or my tone will be misinterpreted as bitchy, I'm PMSing, I'm rude, whatever, but I have to do it. If I stop that Monday, I would like for my colleagues, my female colleagues, just to say, you know what? I can't hear her speak. I can't judge the tone of this email. If I'm curious, maybe I'll call her. But I don't think we do that enough. I don't think we can have candid, frank conversations about things that are matter of fact without someone taking maybe an emotional part of what did they mean? Are they putting me down? Because we are made to feel like we have to be competitive against each other, right? Why do women feel so competitive with each other? Like, I think we need to learn that there's equal seats at the table for all women to be successful. And I think the system has oppressed us to say, there's only one. There's only one spot. So you guys have to fight it out. I think the Barbie movie kind of touched on that. And you have to fight it out. So she's successful. That means you're not. What a bunch of bullshit. We could take over the table. All of us.
Their own damn table.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just really going back to what I was talking about earlier about standing up to the bully and being there to support one another and use your group chat voice. I heard that on a podcast and I want to keep saying that. Like,
I love that.
Use your group chat voice because in order for anyone to succeed, we need to grab everybody around us and bring us on board. And Chris, I see you doing that all the time by inviting other women in, like not even necessarily cosmetic medicine, but in medicine in general. I mean, I love that you had, and her name is escaping me, the naturopath, Jane Wood? Was it Jane Wood?
So Jane Wood was there I think, as a nutritionist and therapist. It was Dr. Cheryl Allen.
Dr. Cheryl Allen, thank you. And I love that you're hosting more of these information sessions and workshops. And Jodie, I see like even the work that you're doing in spotlighting. And Morgan, you are speaking globally and worldwide to young girls about entering into optometry. You guys are all empowering other women in your own way. And I don't think that that's celebrated enough. I don't think it's recognized enough. And I mean, I'm here to do it for you, but I really think that you all should be so proud of doing that. And this is like what we're talking about today. It's just really building on each other for female empowerment and just getting back to the basics of supporting and uplifting one another and being there for each other, just celebrating your achievements and accomplishments and saying like, hey, you're doing great work, because like, you know, we don't do that enough. Now, kind of looking into your own businesses and some integral partnerships and catalyst organizations and key players who have been instrumental in your own personal journeys that you think that have helped you guys succeed?
For me in particular, it's about finding mentors that inspire you. And so I do have a lot of female optometry mentors who are actually president and vice president of the Ontario Association of Optometry, which is actually amazing. So I think, being able to identify certain mentors in not just your industry, but other industries as well, to help mold who you are. For me, I'm obviously a part of my professional association that gives me a lot of tools and resources to succeed in my career. But actually, your local resources are there for you as well, and they're there to support you. I did serve on the Renfrew BIA. And serving on the BIA, I came to know about a lot of different resources that as a small business owner, I actually didn't know existed at the time. So for example, there's a digital grant that you can apply for, $2,500 to revamp your current website or build a new website. There are grants to reface the front of your building. They host business advisory days that are completely free where you can go and meet with different business advisors in the area. And they actually had female representation at that business advisory day, which I thought was fantastic. So there are, ways to get involved in your community and attending events like this. Thank you so much, Holly, for allowing us to be a part of this. To provide a platform for us all to get together and celebrate each other and empower each other and encourage us not to dim our light, because if we shine bright and value who we are, we might be giving someone else that we don't know about permission to do the same. And so we really just have to work together to continue pushing that forward. And I'm so grateful for a platform like this.
I think for me, succeeding in business, and particularly in owning my own business, I first and foremost had the help of family and friends. And I think it's more important, and I recognize its importance every day, to ask for help and to recognize that asking for help is a kindness to your friend. You're saying, hey, I value what you're going to do for me. Can you please give me a hand? I know when I was pregnant as a single mom in the pandemic and lockdown in my own building and losing it. And Kristin actually said, Jodie, we're going to go for a walk every day. We'll walk on opposite sides of the street. A police officer stopped us and said we were the best social distancers he'd seen.
And from two overachievers that we were sailing on that compliment all night.
We were looking for our medal in the mail. But one of the things that I'd say in the last year I recognized was a hallmark of a successful person is finding inspiration in everything that you do and bringing it back to your business. So every so often I'll be doing a meditation and someone on Peloton's telling me some random thing, but then I carry it for myself in the rest of the day. Or an event like this, I'll hear something or meet somebody, and what they have to say I'm able to bring in. And so it doesn't always need to be big formal conferences or reading a very specific book. I think if you have a mind to looking for treasures in every experience, in every interaction, I think that those are great ways to support your business, because then you're going to have a multifaceted and very broad range of resources that are available to you every day.
I think Holly touched upon it again early in her opening speech, but finding your tribe, finding a group of people that have a common, sense of everything, of what it's like just to be a woman in business, just what it's like to be anyone really, and someone has similar views. One of the things I've really had to learn is surrounding myself with people who are softer, right? So people who are gentle. I have a group of coworkers that are here supporting me today, and they came to support me because they knew that public speaking was really hard. So finding your tribe, people who are forgiving and will forgive you for your mistakes, for allowing you to make mistakes and not judge you. I think that's a huge, huge important thing about being a woman at all, entrepreneur, women in general, because we're so hard on ourselves already. And when we make mistakes, we don't need someone to point it out because we're already beating ourselves up over it, right? So that's one of the things I've really had to learn is just to listen to someone else's point of view and surround yourself with people who will listen to you, say, I'm sorry, or I made a mistake, or no, I'm holding my boundary. And they're going to respect you for your decision, not judge you, right? So finding your tribe, to me, has been one of my most important things in success in business, and finding people that allow that for me.
It's no different than being a mom, though, right? Like, and I refer so much to motherhood because I'm just in the brink of it, and I'm going through all the different stages with motherhood and really rallying towards other moms. And I see, like, we always refer to our business as our baby. And as moms, like, those are our children, and you take pride in your kids, just like you do with your business. And so again, like, kind of going back, like, I who here watches Working Moms on Netflix? Such a good show, right? And I'll never forget, I think in the first season, and a mom was going by, and so bad with names today. One of the characters, had said, like, her daughter was like acting out and said, you be grateful for your mother. Like, she's doing the best she can. And the mom looks at her and goes, thank you. Like, and I mean, again, like, just going back to what you're saying, Chris, like, just not being judgmental and just like applauding and saying, you're doing the best you can. And when you have employees that are going to surround you, and your colleagues, I shouldn't even say the employees, your colleagues around you, and to encourage them and uplift them, especially when they're having those hard days. Like, we're freaking human. Like, we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to come into the office of smiley every day. And we're all going to have our shit. Maybe we're tired. Maybe our daughters are up all night too. And, and you're not getting sleep. And we have to give ourselves grace, and we have to give others grace. Like, just be respectful and nice to one another. Just remind people, like, you're doing the best you can. You keep going, woman. Yeah. Now, you guys know, especially my dedicated listeners, you all know that I love to ask my featured guest, who's one local boss babe that inspires them. And today, I'm posing that question of myself, but I mean, I think it's obvious. These three ladies this year really inspire me. They're trailblazers in their careers and in their industries and everything that they're doing. And I'm always watching so closely and celebrating them. Maybe not always in the DMs, but just smiling with pride. Like, Jodie, I was so excited when you opened up your second location in Empire, and I was so sad not to be there to be a part of it. But she had reached out and asked me, to do some content and stuff for that. And again, like, that was one way to do the supporting. But because I was returning back to work, I had a lot on my plate. I found another content creator who, could step in, and Jodie ended up supporting her. Chris, like, in the utilization of your own location, you allowed me to hold my Galentine's Day event last year, and your staff are all on board helping out. And it was such a fun success to be able to utilize your atmosphere. And so that's another way that we can support one another. Even though we're all in different industries, there are still ways that we can be a part of each other's businesses and celebrate, support one another, and just be a part of all of it. And Morgan, I mean, like I had said, I knew after speaking with you, you were just so, you were so open and such a good public speaker, I think, on our podcast. And I was just like, there needs to be a way for us to connect and work together in some capacity. And so there's always ways that we could find opportunities to work together and to support one another and to spotlight each other and celebrate. But instead of asking who one local boss babe that inspires each of you, because I've already asked you all this question, I want to ask, what kind of influence do you strive to have on your female colleagues and perception to the community as a whole?
in 15 words or less.
That's really tough. I think I just want to help to encourage women to be themselves and to know that they're enough just as they are, and that they have every right to occupy any space that they find themselves in. And I think that it's okay to failure is okay, and rejection is okay. And the more successful you are, the more failure and rejection you've probably experienced. So I think I would just like other women in my community to know that that's okay, and just try to be that role model and that sort of play that mentorship role, so that we can aim to lift the bar in terms of representation and seeing women successful women breaking barriers and achieving these successes all on their own, because then we can provide representation for that next generation as something to aspire to. And when the possibility is there, it just gives you so much more encouragement.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I don't know how to top that one or even make it equal. I suppose that in my business and in the staff and to the community, how I like to represent Hela is that we're up for discussion on anything. Nothing to me is taboo. We're an inclusive place. I'm an inclusive boss to the staff, to the community. If you need someone or a partner just to think outside the box, throw some crazy ideas, and just try to be solution based, right? Try to think of some ways that we can move forward with an issue or a problem. More than happy to discuss that and to support anybody that wants to try attacking an issue with a different perspective.
For me in the community, and in the legal profession, I suppose I hope to inspire people with a little bit of courage. Maybe people look and who know me from when I was younger, and they're like, if Jodie can do it, like anyone can do it. And I think that that's very much the case. I like to think of myself as hopefully influencing younger women or younger non-binary or trans women to have the courage to try new things, to have the courage to speak up for themselves, and to have the courage to fall. And I think taking those risks and seeing somebody taking risks and sometimes making it and taking risks and sometimes falling flat on their face, I'm hoping that's something that everybody can see inside of themselves, and maybe they'll be inspired to take a risk as well.
I think that's a great way to wrap up our discussion, ladies. Everybody, if you're not already, please follow Hela Beauty, Primeau Law, and the Renfrew Iconic on the socials. You need an optometrist. Dr. Rowley and Dr. Welburn are your women of choice, I would say, out in Renfrew. Kristin and her team are fantastic. And again, 2 locations to serve you in Pembroke and Petawawa. They're amazing. I'm constantly talking to Laura on the phone, probably way too much in Petawawa when I'm calling to book an appointment. But yeah, they're fantastic. And of course, Jodie and her team are there for all of your legal advice. And again, 2 great locations to serve you in Arnprior and in Deep River. Thank you, ladies, for being a part of OB Boss Babe.
Thank you
for having us.
That was great.